Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. We're going to get to it in just a minute. I want to give you a quote by the Greek philosopher Plato. He once wrote, "We must hold to the best opinions of the best of men unless we have a certain word from God." We must hold to the best opinions of the best of men unless we have a certain word from God. Well, guess what, Plato? We have a certain word from God. It is called the Bible. And in it, we have everything we need for life and godliness. And one of the most important parts of life is romantic love. And God has a lot to say about romantic love, or as we're calling it in this series, the art of love. And he says so much of it in this small little book that only has 8 chapters called Song of Solomon. And I want to say this book is for young people. Now, it's not for kids. It's not for like 4 and 5-year-olds. But it's for young people. And here's why. It's for single people. Because you need to talk about these things and you need to understand what God has to say about these things before you get married. So that you miss out on great heartache. Now, this book is written by, guess, Solomon. And it's an interaction between him and his wife. It is probably his first wife, who he loved very much. So this is not the wife you're probably like, well, why are we talking about love from a dude that had 300 wives and 700 concubines? That's a great question. Tommy Nelson says this. He says, well, why do we learn about worship from a man like David who killed somebody? Why do we learn about Christian doctrine from a man who hunted and killed the first Christians? I believe this woman that he is going to quote and refer to was probably his first wife before all of the wives that came with treaties and the concubines that came with treaties came about. And tonight, we are talking about attraction. Tonight is called the art of attraction. And there comes a time in every person's life when you remember starting to find people attractive. You go to bed one night not thinking about people being attractive, not thinking about that girl being attractive or that guy being attractive. You go to bed, you wake up the next day, and that person that you thought was gross all of a sudden wasn't gross anymore. The repulsion was gone, and now a particular member of the opposite sex has caught your eye, and you find yourself being attracted to them. Of course, not everyone laughs the way that Corey and Sean laugh when their attraction begins. Sean doesn't even know what to say. That girl comes up and says, hey, you want to go to the movies? And he is attracted, and he doesn't know what to do except laugh. And the reason I pulled that clip is because these two moments are snapshots of Corey and Sean's life when they go from not caring about girls to caring about girls really quick. Corey always thought Topanga was weird and strange, and for the first 20 episodes, he pretty much made fun of her. And all of a sudden, there's a hand clap and the laughing. Attraction has started. Now, we won't all start laughing when we find ourselves attracted, like Sean and Corey do, but it's going to happen nonetheless. So let's define attraction first. I have this definition in your notes for you. This is not really a definition. It's just kind of a thought about attraction. So I want you to roll with me here. Attraction is a natural feeling of being drawn to another individual. It is a natural feeling of being drawn to another individual. It is not just one thing about the person, but a variety of things that causes this to happen. So it's a natural feeling of being drawn to another individual. And it's not just one thing about that person, but it's a variety of things about that person that causes this to happen. There are a lot of beautiful people in the world. It is true, there are billions of beautiful people in the world. But it is not just beauty that draws. It's beauty and something more. It's beauty and something more. Okay, you should have been filling this all out as I was going along in that definition. Let me say it one more time. It is a natural feeling of beings drawn to another individual. It is not just one thing about the person, but a variety of things that causes this to happen. There are lots of beautiful people in the world, but it's not just beauty that draws, but it's beauty and something more. That something more is what we're going to talk about tonight. That something more should carry a larger weight than the beauty. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. The art of attraction. The very beginning of this book is a married couple, I believe, looking back on the beginning of their relationship. And these first 7 verses are going to talk about their attraction to one another. Okay? Look at verse 2. And verse 1 just says, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon. Look at verse 2. This is the woman speaking. Here's what the woman says. Verse 2. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Make no mistake about it. She finds him handsome and good looking. She wants to kiss him on the mouth. Kiss him on the mouth. She wants to kiss him on the mouth. And then look what it says. For your love is better than wine. Here's what I want you to understand. I don't think she's just saying the way you love me is better than wine. I think she's saying I'd rather kiss you than drink wine. It tastes better kissing you. In other words, your loving is better than wine. Okay? Those 2 statements let us know all we need to know about her physical attraction to him. Is she physically attracted to Solomon? Yes. I want to kiss you on the mouth. Your love, the way your loving that you give me is better than wine. But I want you to notice something. Something that is more important than physical attraction. More important than the way that he looks. Which, by the way, is going to fade. Verse 3. Your name is oil poured out. Do you know what is more important than physical attractiveness? Your name. Now, in Scripture, do you know what a name was all about? A name was all about character and integrity and virtue. When you said that you're attracted to someone's name or someone's name, you're praising someone's name, you are praising their character, their integrity, and their virtue. Here's why I know that. What are we called to praise? The name of the Lord. What are we meaning? Are we praising the vowels and the consonants that make up the name? Is that what we're praising? No, what we're doing is we're praising the character and the virtue of our Lord. Here she says, your character, your virtue, your integrity is like poured out oil. Let me just say this right here. Ladies, I'm going to talk to you for a minute. Look at me. Run from any guy with bad character. Run from any guy with bad character. No matter how hot he is, no matter how good looking he is, No matter how physically appealing he may be, if he does not have high character and integrity and virtue, have nothing to do with that guy romantically. It is better for you to be single and be with nobody than to be with somebody that has bad character. Let me repeat that. Please listen to me. It is better not to have a boyfriend, not to have a fiance, and not to have a spouse than to be with a guy who has bad character. You know that one day you're going to marry someone you're attracted to? And you better be attracted, ladies, to a guy with a great name. They better have a great name, great character, great virtue, great integrity. You better pick someone with great character. When you enter into a romantic relationship, and the more serious that relationship gets, ladies, listen to me. You know what you're doing? You are giving space to that guy to destroy you. Listen to me. When you date somebody or court somebody or get engaged to somebody or you're married to somebody, you are giving space to that guy to destroy you. Tommy Nelson, in his teaching on this verse, he says it this way. He says, when you get married, you are taking a gun and you are putting it to your head, and you're putting the hand of your husband on the trigger, trusting that he's not going to pull it. Because you are giving them the space to destroy your life. That's why you better pick somebody with character. That you can trust their virtue and their integrity to know I'm giving them the space to hurt me and to destroy me, but they won't do it. And if you pick someone with character, it's going to be a joy and a delight to be with them. Verse 4, draw me after you. Let us run. The king has brought me into his chambers. There is no fear in this woman that this man is going to hurt her. She doesn't see a lack of integrity in him. She says, draw me in. Let's run together. Let's be together. I trust you. Why? Because your name is great. Your integrity is great. And look at the kind of man she picks in the second part of verse 4. Who speaks here? In your Bible, you're going to have a little division here. First it says she. What does the second half of verse 4 say? Others. Who are these others? These are other women. Other women who may be a part of the palace. They may be in relationship to this girl. We don't exactly know who they are, but look at what they say about him. We will exalt you and rejoice in you. We will extol your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. You know what she's saying? She's saying, I've picked the kind of guy that any girl would be lucky to be with. I've picked a man with integrity and character and virtue that any woman would be glad to be with. So my first point is character is more valuable than looks. Looks fade, looks go away. When Jessica and I got married, I weighed 186 pounds. And I kid you not, there was barely any fat on my body. I was 23 years old, about to be 23 years old, 1 week after we got married. I was in great shape. I am now 46 years old. 23 years later, I weigh roughly 212 to 215 pounds, and there is fat on my body. I do not look the way that I look. My wife does not look the way that she looked when we got married. What happens is that we change. We get wrinkly. Our skin gets saggy. Jessica was telling me the other day, she goes, Neil, my skin is just sagging. I don't know what's going on. I said, babe, we're getting old. But our relationship is more than the physical attractiveness of the two people in it. There's something more valuable than that, and it's character. Point number 2, looks are not as valuable as character. Now, you may say that's just the same point as the first one. You just moved the words around. Yeah, I did, because it's the exact same point in the second half. The same point's going to be made again. I would love to come up with something clever and be like, ooh, I got this other point. I don't. These 7 verses make one point. Character is more valuable than looks, and looks are not as valuable as character. Verse 5. I love that the woman says this. The woman says, I am lovely. She says, I'm lovely. But there is a physical feature that she considers a drawback. And she says it 2 different times. Look at verse 5. She says, I am very dark, but lovely. And then she says it again in verse 6. Do not gaze at me because I am dark. Now, this is not talking about the amount of melanin or lack of melanin that she has in her DNA. Okay? I'm looking at a bunch of brown people here, right? We are all various shades of brown. Okay, that's not what she's talking about. What she's talking about is she has not been able to take care of her skin. Now, in the Middle East and in the East, the skin of a woman, okay, her complexion and her skin was the ultimate valuable external thing. That is why in the Middle East and the East, they cover up their skin all the time. They're constantly covered up because what they're doing is they're protecting what they consider to be the most valuable thing that they have to offer physically. She says, I'm a lovely person, but there's this drawback that I have. I'm dark. And here's how she has described it. She says, the sun has looked upon me. I am very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not gaze at me because I am dark, because the sun has looked upon me. What does she mean? She means the sun has damaged my skin. I don't view my skin as beautiful. The sun has damaged it. She hasn't been able to take care of her skin. Now, what's the reason for this? Why hasn't she been able to? It says in verse 6 that she becomes the keeper of the vineyard. Her brothers, who were in charge of the crops, who were in charge of the vineyard, put her to work in the vineyard. Now, this was not normal, but she had to go to work in the vineyard. And as a result of having to go every day and work outside in the sun has damaged her skin. We don't know how severely this is. All we know is she is not meeting the standard of beauty in that day and age. Now, let me say something about standards of beauty. Standards of beauty always change. Do you know that if you were skinny in the Victorian age, you were considered ugly? Because it meant you were poor and you didn't have money to have a bunch of food to pump yourself up. Standards of beauty is always changing. There was a time that if a man wasn't hairy, you were not considered attractive. You were a girly man if you couldn't grow hair, you know. Now you know what men do? They shave that mess off. A lot of men shave it off. And the point I'm making is those standards are constantly changing. The standard that she is looking at herself and measuring herself, she's saying, I don't meet the standard of beauty today because my skin is damaged by the sun. Now, I want to show you something about her, though. Listen carefully. I want to show you something about her. She is obedient to her brothers, who are the authority over her. She is hardworking, and she has great character. The physical was secondary, and Solomon thought the physical was secondary. Men, let me talk to you for a minute now. Men, there is nothing wrong with wanting to have a physically beautiful girlfriend, fiance, wife. Nothing wrong with it at all. But her outside beauty better be secondary to her relationship with Jesus. It better be secondary. Just like a guy can destroy a girl, so a girl with bad character can destroy a guy. You better be attracted to a girl who has great principles and standards and won't budge off of those principles or standards. This woman does that. Look at verse 7. This is a very weird verse. Now remember, this is all poetry. So it's all like, I'm going to say this in a way that's poetic, but I mean this. Look at what she says in verse 7. Tell me whom my soul loves. Where you pasture your flock, where you make it lie down at noon. For why should I be like one who veils herself beside the flocks of your companions? What in the world does that mean? She's saying, my love, tell me, where do you pasture your sheep? Because I don't want to be chasing around your companions trying to find you. Now, what does that mean? Do you know who were the ones that would veil themselves and follow the companions around? Prostitutes. Prostitutes. Women would veil themselves and follow the men of wealth around looking for an opportunity to sell themselves. Now here's what she says. I will not be like one of them. I have a standard. Like, I want your attention. You are the one my soul loves. I am attracted to your character. I am attracted to you. But I have standards and principles that I will not budge on. And I'm going to stick to those standards and principles, even if it means not being with you. I am not going to budge off of them. I am not going to prostitute myself to get your attention. That's what she's saying. I am not going to be someone that is unprincipled and compromises their standards for you. So you tell me where you're at and I'll go. But otherwise, that's it. I want you to listen to me. Guys, pick a girl like this. I'm telling you, listen, I have been around teenagers since I became a teenager. So I became a teenager. I was around teenagers. In college, I was around teenagers. I would come home during the summer. I would work here at the church with teenagers. After I graduated, I came here and I've been working with teenagers ever since. And do you want me to tell you one of the things that has destroyed the lives? Look at me and listen. One of the things that has destroyed the lives of people who have sat right where you're sitting is they chose a bad girl or a bad guy. And it ruined them. And they come back to me, or they come back to somebody else, Shelby or David or Gabby or Trevor. They come back to the other leaders that have been here throughout the years, and they say, I have found myself in a place that I could not imagine finding myself. Why? Because you chose poorly. Guys, pick a girl like this. Character, integrity, standards, principles, and virtue are primary, and the beauty is secondary. Girls, pick a guy like this. where character and integrity and virtue matter more than beauty. Now I have a secondary question for you. I wrote this question down at the bottom. I think this is an important question. Who are you attracting? Not simply who you're attracted to. Who are you attracting? Now here's what I mean by that. Ladies, are you attracting men? Or will you attract men one day of high character because that's who you are? Guys, are you attracting girls of high virtue because you are a guy of high virtue? See, here's what happens. If you're a person of high integrity and high character and high virtue, guess who you attract? People of high character and high virtue and high integrity. But if you compromise that, guess who you attract? People who also compromise that. Birds of a feather flock together. Who are you attracting? I want to end tonight with an example from my wife. You're going to hear a lot about my wife in this series. I value her above all women that I have ever met in my life. So you will hear a lot about her. Is she perfect? No. Far from it. But I want to end tonight with this. You got nothing else to write, so I want you to look at me. My wife never dated anyone in junior high. She never dated anyone in high school. And I mean no one. My wife had a very high standard, and she was not going to compromise that standard for anybody. Did she have some guys that liked her? Yeah. But they were not up to the character and the integrity that she was looking for. And she did not give them the time of day. That meant dating nobody for the first, basically 18 years of her life. Now, was that hard on her emotionally? Yeah. It was hard. It wasn't easy. But it was worth it. It was worth it. It was worth not compromising integrity and virtue and character. It was worth being single all through junior high, being single all through high school. It was worth it because she kept her virtue. She kept her character. She kept her integrity. She protected her virtue until God brought the perfect man along. This guy.